Alright, we have to talk about this right-wing idea of parents' rights. It's literally just fascism. As far as I can tell, parents' rights means allowing parents to control their kids, even in ways that are harmful to their kids.
From what I can see, there was not an honest claim in your entire authoritarian lecture to parents, which comes from someone who is childless and essentially a child themselves. In other words, someone without experience dictating to those who have. Eternity can be spent righteously refuting your perilous and egregious acrobatic manipulations of morality and willingness to use the state to enforce your contortionist worldview upon others by threatening to steal their children. But let's focus on your thesis statements. Your assertion that not affirming a child's confusion is somehow harmful is an absurdist lunacy. A mania you are unable to recognize because you are in the midst of the storm, like being unable to image the Milky Way galaxy from within it. Trans activists come armed with fallacies they dub as statistics. They attempt to prove the unprovable by using calculations compiled not by uninvested statisticians sifting through raw data filtered objectively, but by individuals with an agenda, by trans activist groups trying to justify what they already believe while turning a blind eye to counter studies whose findings are in diametric opposition to their own suppositions. However, my comprehension of you adherence to gender ideology suggests that you would make the same argument that I just provided for you. Let me nip this in the bud right now. Being trained in mathematics, having double majored in pure mathematics and astrophysics, I will let you in on a little secret. The field of statistics is the only practice of numerical analysis that lies. It's not that it can lie, it's that it almost always does. The simplest of examples. Say I'm a student who's had 2 exams. I missed the first, so scored a 0. On the following, I scored a perfect 100. Then my average is 50%. The obvious inconsistency is that I never scored a 50. Hence, this average is misleading. And when stats are used to promote an agenda, when the statistician begins with an assumption he's trying to prove, stats become outright deceit. So leave statistics, yours and mine, out of it. Refusing to affirm a child's identity when it differs from observable reality is specifically not harmful, because a said identity is manufactured by an aggressive advertising campaign, and no one benefits having their delusions confirmed by others. Imagine telling a schizophrenic that the voices are correct and should be acted upon. You claim that children will harm themselves, even take their own lives if their confusion goes unconfirmed. Then where was the rash of self-mutilation and childhood suicide when I was growing up? Or any time before people like you introduced that idea to children? Point to the recorded instances of kids behaving this way at any point in history, even once. Why is it not happening in Iran, Qatar, Afghanistan, China, or anywhere in Africa? Where was this massive identification throughout history? You argue that more people are coming out because they are accepted. If that logical fallacy were honest, then throughout history, trans people existed without transitioning. They lived out normal lives. This means being trans is a choice, since by your own logic, the trans community chose not to express their gender identity in favor of social acceptance, and did so without mass suicides. Parental rights are fascist? It's obvious you don't even know what that word means. It's not some catch-all pejorative for everything you dislike or disagree with, or for bigoted views like your own. Fascism was a specific form of government during a specific era in a specific country with a specific party led by a specific man. Do you know any of those specifics? What you mean is authoritarian, but even that, your logic is like shattered glass, disparate and lacking cohesiveness. As a parent, I created life and am responsible for every detail of my children's well-being, safety, and for ensuring they are fed, clothed, and housed. I've given my entire life to them. Every atom of my being, my every thought, feeling, and action is an act of devotion to them. Even if my child were your student, and you were willing to put your body between him and a non-Russian car, you would never sacrifice the totality of your existence to him. You might, and this is a big maybe, die for him, but you would not live for him. That's what makes them my children, and me responsible for instilling my cultural norms, belief structure, and values. As a parent, it's my duty and right to instill whatever moral imperatives I decide will make them better men, up to and including the reality that gender ideology is lunacy, and arming them with every refutation to LGBTQ theory being propagandized today. Having existed longer than you, I know what you don't. Wokeness and gender ideology are passing trends, like the hippies of the 60s, and my children are not beholden to fashionable fads or to you. My rights end where yours begin, and me teaching my children to reject this transient social craze does not limit your rights at all. But here you are, a stranger in a classroom with radical ideas, i.e., notions inconsistent with objective, external reality as understood for the totality of humanity's existence, who only has access to students for one part of the day, 5 days a week. Someone whose relationship with students won't last beyond the school year, and who will forget the majority of other people's kids who pass through your classroom. A stranger demanding the right to subvert the parental bond, refute and repudiate the values that parents teach at home, to tell students that their parents are bigoted, immoral, and uneducated, that it's okay for someone else's child to keep things from the people who love them most, who die and live for them. Secrets shared with a non-related adult who loses interest when the child ages out. These are not rights at all, unless you are Stalin, Pol Pot, or Mao. We have actual rights bestowed by the virtues of existing and by having created life. Rights that do not infringe upon yours in any conceivable way. You demand rights radicals invented without historical or legal precedent, and which would be rejected nearly everywhere outside of the Western world. Rights you believe justified imposing upon other people and their children, forcing them to behave, believe, think, and talk in a way that satisfies you in this moment. Imagined rights of a strange adult that infringe upon the rights of others in every conceivable way. The rights of a narcissist. Who's the bigoted authoritarian? Or to use your uninformed misnomer, the fascist? Parents who want to decide the values and morality instilled in their own children? Or the invasive, childless ideologue who feels justified dictating conformity, dictating how others should live and what their children should believe? The answer should be obvious. You have no rights to other people's children, no right to indoctrinate them. Parental rights are not right-wing and weren't political until you made it so. This is a defense of our biological imperative, the primal duty hardwired into us. My parents, my misguided idealist, remain devoted until we are in the dirt. For us, our children never age out. But what do I know? I'm just some punk who cares.